Welcome to Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host, and thank you for downloading today's episode. We're going to talk about uncovering your hidden expertise. And this show is for everyone, those of you that work for yourself or those of you that work for others, because your expertise is part of your purpose, in my opinion. It's part of your legacy. It's part of your creative juices and energy that is naturally within you. Whether you're using them or not, or you know what defines you or not, is a different story. And I think we all have room to grow and uncover more and more that which life has provided an education for, that you are an expert in, and you don't even know it because you haven't given yourself time or credit to do that. So today's show is with Mr. Michael Neeley. You've had him on this show before. He does my live events, Releasing What Weighs You Down. He's a dear friend, and he's going to talk about an event of his that's coming up. And I want to make sure that you guys stay and listen to the details of that, because there's a scholarship opportunity, which means you can come for free. So listen closely, listen carefully, and see if it sparks any kind of interest in you, because I would definitely recommend you take advantage of that opportunity. And we'll tell you where to go, and everything is /JJ, or the code is JJ. So it's really easy to get to. We are starting the 30-Day Manifestation Challenge today. It is May 1st. And if you have already signed up to join us but have not yet gotten into the Facebook group or gotten an email, please contact me by replying to the email that you got when you registered. For those of you that want to join, I will let people in for the next couple of days. But past that, we're going to lock down and get real serious about the people and the folks who've come in earlier. Because there's lots to do. There's lots of videos to watch and things to listen to sort of get prepared to maximize these 30 days. And so again, that's jjflazanes.com, and go to free tools and resources. And in that section, you'll find the link to the 30-Day Manifestation Challenge. Not sure when the next one's going to be yet. It won't be June. It probably won't even be July. I don't know. But this is the last one for a little while for sure. So join us quickly if you want to get involved and learn how to strengthen your manifestation skills. A last thing to also talk about today is last week's show, the long show with Ty Kane. I just want to make sure those of you know that I really love your feedback, and I listen wholeheartedly to what you have to say, and I care about what you have to say, because obviously you're the ones that keep this show going. And so please feel free at any point to write me an email of confirmation, or if you're not liking what you're hearing, or it triggered you in some way, or you really like it and you want more of it. I have had people tell me that they do want 2 episodes a week for Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. And so I know some of you get a little overwhelmed because I think it's content and thought rich, and therefore you listen to a show multiple times, which I love, and I would encourage you to keep doing. Heck, I listen to my own show sometimes, because if I'm in a zone and I'm channeling things, then I obviously get excited about what's coming out, and sometimes it's just happening, and so I go back and I listen. I go, wow, yeah, that was good. I could remind myself of that. So I will be in the near future adding 2 shows a week to Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. And I won't overwhelm you. No worries. Those of you that come on and binge this show, I want to make sure you always have content available to you. And trust me, I've got content I can provide. So enjoy today's show. Today's show, again, is with my dear friend, Michael Neeley. And we're talking about uncovering your hidden expertise. Michael Neeley is a former professional actor and medieval knight turned author, speaker, host of the podcasts Consciously Speaking and Buy This, Not That, and is a personal development coach. His passion is waking people up, and he does it by coaching heart-centered entrepreneurs and people in finding their gift, growing their voice, and stepping into the spotlight in a big way. Michael is a mindset master and certified Dharma teacher who mentors people in podcasting, hosting their own summit, social media marketing, and growing their audience. If you have a message or gift itching to get out, Michael is your guy. Welcome back to the show, Michael.
Hey, how are you, JJ?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am doing really well, and I'm excited about seeing you at multiple events this year. It's going to be so much fun.
I know. Well, we're going to keep it up because you're going to be back. Michael was one of the presenters at Releasing What Weighs You Down in January of 2018, and will be back in January of 2019. So be sure not to miss that event. Make sure you get your live ticket. Of course, you can always buy a virtual ticket if you can't attend live with us. So, and Michael's event coming up, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, And what I want to share with people and what I think is really important for this next wave of information, people feel that they get stuck in their career or stuck in their business, or they get stopped, I think, because they don't have a degree, they haven't been recognized in a certain field. I mean, I know people who have started businesses who didn't even finish high school, and people who own successful businesses who didn't finish college. And I know that a lot of people don't feel like if they haven't gone to school and have a degree, that they don't have a voice, they don't have an expertise. And I know you and I both come from varied background. We both have acting backgrounds, right? So, but we've decided that our life experience has created our expertise. And so I wanted to share your story a little bit more, Michael, and how you started your show and how you've developed your expertise and how you're helping others do the same thing.
Sure. I'm excited to share that, JJ. Thank you. And I'm curious, where do you want me to start? Like, because you mentioned the acting stuff. How far back should I go?
What right now, if someone said to you, what is your expertise? What would you
Gotcha.
list?
I would say that I am an expert at helping solopreneurs build their platform. You know, how to go from what I consider the best kept secret, like they may be really good at what they do, but nobody knows that, or a few people know that, but it's really low key, to take them from there to becoming the go-to expert in their field so that, you know, their name becomes more well known. You know, just like yourself, as an example, you step into certain circles and, oh yeah, JJ, I've seen your show, I've heard your name, I've read your book, you know, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But you have more than one expertise, don't you? Because, of course, that's not what we used at Releasing What Weighs You Down. People are probably thinking, well, why was it Releasing What Weighs You Down? So what's another of your expertise?
Yeah, so it started out, as an actor, I really did a lot of study into ontology, the study of being, how we are as humans being in the world. And so a lot of deep personal exploration, and some of that's translated into my book, The Art of Forgetting, which deals with how do we overcome these internal blocks that we create for ourselves. And then, of course, that kind of segued into a podcast and then, you know, evolved to where I'm at now.
And let's not forget there's a Dharma teacher in there too, right?
Right. It's kind of funny when I look at it, I'm like, wow, yeah, I do kind of have lots of areas of expertise. So I'm a certified Dharma teacher and meditation guide. And that was also part of my podcast in season 1. I would do weekly guided meditations on the show. And I have in the works another podcast specifically on meditation. So that's an area of expertise. And, you know, not to leave out the fact that I used to joust and sword fight for a living. So I was a professional knight even. So
well, isn't that a cool thing to put on our website, on a resume?
Exactly.
In a picture, I was a professional jouster and knight.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. You know, and the funny thing too is that I believe I still have a picture of this on my website, was years ago when I was jousting for the New York Renaissance Fair, Spin Magazine came up, and that's a rock and roll magazine, but they came up and did a story on the badass knights kind of a thing of the, you know, Renaissance Fair. And what was interesting about it was the person who interviewed me for the Spin Magazine article was Elizabeth Gilbert, before she did Eat, Pray, Love and became famous and everything. So that was just really cool little incident there.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning in terms of did you always want to act? Is that where it started?
Yeah, it kind of started, and it's funny you ask, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Is I started out in 4th grade. There was a classroom production of The Prince and the Pauper, and I got bit by the acting bug. I mean, there's a term in the acting world, you know it, I'm sure, but when you have a really small role in a play, you're like, yeah, I'm 4th spear from the left, kind of a thing, and so that's what I was. I was just one tiny little. I think I had one line, and I carried a spear, and that was it. But what happened was, the day before we were to go on, the guy who was playing the pauper, little 4-year-old. Not 4-year-old, 10-year-old boy, 4th grade, he could not remember his lines for the life of him. But I was so enamored with acting and the rehearsals and just standing there as the 4th spear, I was listening to the words, and I memorized his lines just by hearing them over and over again through the rehearsals. And so when the teacher's like, okay, we're going to have to cancel production because you can't remember the lines, I raised my hand and said, I know the lines. And so I got moved into the role of the pauper, and the rest is history. It's like, I'm going to be an actor when I grow up.
I love when that happens.
It was pretty cool.
All right, so now you're acting, and then at what point did you stop acting? Did you become interested in something else?
Yeah, that thing called fatherhood. So I was living in LA, and the life of an actor is, it can be hills and valleys, roller coaster ride, if you will. Like you might make really good money for a month or two, and then you don't have any work for a couple of months. And so it's good income, no income, good income, no income. And that's really tough raising a family. And so my son was born in Los Angeles in 2002, and I was still, pursuing my acting career, but my wife and I talked it over, and with the thick LA smog, I read somewhere that raising a kid in that, by the time they're 18, it's like they've smoked 2 packs a day or something like that. Really, really bad. And so we decided, let's move out of Los Angeles. And so I was, at that point ready to, put away my acting career and focus on other stuff. And so we moved in 2004 up to Santa Cruz, where I live now, and I've been here ever since.
What were you interested in at that point? What did you want to pursue?
Yeah, JJ, I floundered for a while, quite frankly. If like imagine this as a 10-year-old, knowing what I wanted to do with my life, doing that from age 10 all the way up to 42. So 32 years, I knew that acting was it for me. And when that ended, I was like, what is my purpose? What am I here to do? And so I floundered for several years doing different jobs. I was in the advertising world for a while with Comcast. I was in the pharmaceutical industry for a while with one of the major pharmaceutical companies. And then I got into the tech world. But through this process, which, this was from '04 till about 2013, I really was working more on myself, and I started coaching clients on the side, and because I was really good at, the breakthrough work that I was doing, and my book was evolving in this process as well, which kind of started in the pharmaceutical industry when I started to notice things and really started to develop some concepts for my book. And so then in 2014, I launched my podcast and shifted out of the technology industry that I'd evolved into at that point and took the full leap into doing what I'm doing now.
And your first show, Consciously Speaking, how did
Mm-hmm.
that come about? Why that show? Why that topic? What inspired you? Obviously, you want to get into the podcasting world, but you had a message. And where did you feel like the two came together?
Yeah, it was kind of a fluke, really. I was having a coaching session with one of my clients, and he was having some great breakthroughs. And I asked him if he would mind if I recorded it, because I thought it was some great stuff and it could be valuable to have. And so he was fine with that. We recorded it, and at the end, we played it back, and it sounded really good. And he liked it so much, he said, you should start a podcast. This is great material. And I didn't even know what a podcast was, per se. I mean, I knew the word, but I didn't know how it worked. I'd never listened to one in my life. And so he gave me a few directions online. He says, oh yeah, just Google this person. They got a cool podcast. Check them out. And so 2 weeks later, I launched Consciously Speaking. And I chose that title because the area of personal development that I was in was about conscious living and conscious awareness and development in that realm. And I knew a lot of people who were coaches in that area too. And so I said, well, let me call the show Consciously Speaking, because we'll have conversations about waking up. And so I started interviewing some friends, and it was just really sporadic. I would release an episode, every 7 or 10 days. And it was just more like a hobby kind of to go along with my coaching. And then I learned what a podcast could be, and I shut down that show. And I mean, literally just revamped the whole thing, relaunched it, same name, but even a different host, different artwork. And I went to a 7-day-a-week show. And that was in February of 2015. And I've never looked back.
I think that's when I was on your show.
Yeah. You were one of my early guests.
Was around that time for the first time.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're in Consciously Speaking, and you're now evolving from that, and you're now developing programs to help other people create podcasts and find their voice. Like you said, solo experts, solo entrepreneurs or solopreneurs to become the expert in their field. So how did we get from Consciously Speaking to there?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting transition. What happened was part of my mission with Consciously Speaking, I mean, and even, even before I did the relaunch, the first launch of it, I knew I had a mission with it, and that was I felt like there were a lot of brilliant people in this space whose message wasn't getting enough exposure. And so that was my mission, was to, help spread the word, if you will, of a variety of different ways to wake up, because I knew not everything's going to resonate with everybody, but hopefully I would touch on something that would help people to be more awake. Then what happened was because, when I started to 7 days a week, I mean, you know how that is, you become a master of it, an expert really quickly. And so I started having other podcasters reach out to me with questions, and I was in different podcast groups, which, you and I are both a part of, and people would ask stuff and I would respond. And then they go, can I jump on the phone with you? And so literally I was getting on the phone with people who had a podcast 4 years longer than mine, but they were only doing one episode a week. So literally I was already getting more episodes out than they were in a short period of time. But they were kind of blown away by how much I knew and had learned in this process, because I really delved deeply into it. And so I started, helping other people with their podcasts. And then I started helping other people who wanted to launch a podcast. And all of a sudden it made me realize, you know what, this mission is much bigger than me just having my show and spreading the word that way. My mission now is to help other people find their message and spread it as well, so it creates a bigger ripple effect. And so that's kind of why I've evolved into what I'm doing now. And then, of course, podcasting is just kind of like the tip of the spear. The other elements are speaking from stage and writing your own book and, doing virtual summits. And so it just kind of evolved into all of the bigger picture.
So there are people that listen to the show who work for other people, and there are people that listen to the show that work for themselves, and there are people who listen to the show who don't work at all. And so let's address, because I'm going to ask you some personal questions. We're going to dive a little deeper if you're willing to be vulnerable, and go back to, I know you said you floundered for a little bit in between acting and figuring out what it was you wanted to do. At what point, because I know people have that imposter syndrome, and for me, when I heard that, and for those of you that don't know what that means, it's basically the who are you to do this? It's the I'm not good enough. I don't have the expertise. I haven't hit that mark yet to say that I do this. And I think for a lot of us maybe it's in the acting world, I don't know, but maybe because we've tried on so many hats, we know, well, if I can learn to do that, I can learn to do anything. And I don't know if that's part of it, but there are a lot of people in the world who feel like, well, I'm not an expert. I don't have a degree in this subject. In fact, I know people that kept trying to push me out of what I wanted to talk about. It's probably one of the things that I needed to break through and release what weighed me down in order for me to do my event this year. There were people who, in the space of, let's say, self-development and business development, who wanted to keep me in a box and say, no, you can't talk about that. Your education's over here in this way. And for a while it made sense. It made logical sense to say, yes, that person doesn't have a degree or hasn't studied formally in this way. Therefore, maybe they're not an expert. But that's not true. And we all know that because we're all products of. In fact, for a lot of you who are listening, if you are on any kind of weight loss journey, Janine Roth is a very popular weight loss book writer. And her most famous book to me, because it's the only one I have, is Women, Food, and God. And she's not a psychologist. And I read that book. And in fact, Janine Roth's book made me realize that I didn't have to be that person who's lost 100 pounds to have a story that would affect the weight loss industry. And for me, that helped me get over that. Well, I didn't have that experience, so therefore I can't be an expert in it, even though I am, because I have the science and the education. But I didn't have the personal experience of losing 100 pounds to be able to write a book like Women, Food, and God. So at what point did you have the demons? Did you have those thoughts of, well, who am I to do this at any point on any of these journeys?
Sure. And quite honestly, they still come up from time to time. It rears its ugly head. But the thing I've got to keep reminding myself, JJ, is it's kind of like this. Imagine a stuffy college professor with his cardigan sweater and his pipe teaching a first grader, something. It can be the difference and the distance between the two could create such a gap that it doesn't make learning really easy for that first grader or the teaching for that college professor type of a thing either. So what is important that I always look back to is I don't have to be the master of everything that I teach. I just have to be a step or two ahead of the person that I'm trying to share this information with. And it helps to bring them up. And then, of course, I will continue to grow, and then I can help people further along. But the idea is you don't have to be that far ahead of somebody, just a step or two. And that's going to be the best teaching. I mean, at my son's school, when, he was in his 1st through 6th grade, they actually had buddies who were a grade or two ahead of them. And they would pair them up because they know that little difference helps in the learning. And so that's what I would say to anybody out there. You don't have to be the master of what it is that you're teaching.
So if someone's struggling with, I don't know what I'm an expert in, but I feel like I have something inside of me that I want to share, or in the past, we've talked about on the show different people's pains that they've had to go through and the traumas that they can then turn into triumph, like Allison Melody, who lost her parents, both of them to cancer. And then she took that pain and made it into her purpose, which was to share how food can heal the body and to go on a whole food journey and then make that into a podcast. And while Allison will say she's not an expert in nutrition, she finds people who are, and stories, and she shares them with people. And so her expertise has become also building a podcast and an audience, but also taking her passion and her purpose and making it come alive, even though she's not the one giving the information. She's the conduit. And you know what? I'd actually say even Oprah's that way too, right? Because Oprah's not an expert in any of these things, but over the years has decided what information to share, and by default has also learned and grown and can share a lot of wisdom that she's learned from her guests and over the years. So if somebody's out there and they're, thinking about wanting to write a book, because I think that's for a lot of people a life goal that they have that they may never accomplish because they don't feel like, well, what would I do with it? Who would I sell it to? Would I really make a business out of it? But yet I think there's some satisfaction in putting down on paper your life's work and what was your purpose in this life? What did you learn? What wisdom do you have to share with people? So are there any tips or guides or ideas or indications that you might suggest to somebody who, let's say they just want to write a book. They just want to start there.
Yeah.
They're like, I have a book in me. I don't know what it is. I work for somebody else. I don't have my own business. I don't know what to write. I'm not quite sure what the book is going to be. Well, what guidance could you have for somebody that might want to uncover what that book might be?
Sure. Well, let's, even tie that into the food element with, when talking about Allison. So I'm sure that Allison has some great recipe ideas. And maybe someone says, oh, would love to make a dish that's more nutritious. I can't get my husband to eat it, whatever the case may be, something like that. And she goes, oh, well, here's the recipe for this one. All she has to know is one recipe that has value now to someone else. And so let's say that, the person who, is just out there, I would say look at what is something that people ask you about because they know that you know it well. And it could be for a recipe. Or it could be, advice on how to crochet, how to do a particular stitch. It could be anything. But whatever that is that people ask you about, or that you feel like, the other piece of it would be something that you feel this needs to be fixed. It's like that old thing that said, find a problem that exists in the world and fix it. And you could be the master of that and really, make a fortune frequently. And so if your book idea is recipes or if it's just something simple, remember, all it's got to be is something that someone out there doesn't know about. And I guarantee there are plenty of people who don't know what you know. And then put it down on paper and create that book.
Tell us about how you came up with the art of forgetting.
Kind of where it started was, as I mentioned, in the pharmaceutical industry. I was at a training event, and these training events, the pharma industry, by the way, spends billions every year sending their salespeople or bringing them together in large groups in these big training events. And the event might last 3 days, a week, whatever it is. And the company spent a lot of money on that. And then we go out into the field, the event's over, we go back into the field with this newfound wisdom, and we're all gung-ho, and we go out there and we go, I'm going to talk to the doctors about it this new way that I learned. And that lasts for about 2 weeks, and then we fall back into our old habits. And come to find out, as I was looking into this and kind of, reviewing, well, why is that? Why does that happen? I found there's a term for it that actually exists, and it's called the suntan effect. It's kind of like, you go on vacation, you get this great tan, 2 weeks later it's gone. And so it's a common occurrence, and that's why pharmaceutical companies have to continue these new trainings on a regular basis. Imagine the cost of this. So what I really wanted to explore was, well, why does that happen? And the whole concept for me was the fact that I equate it to this. Imagine you've gone through your life believing things to be a certain way. And so imagine that belief system is like a coat. And so now you're wearing this coat, which is your beliefs. And now you go somewhere and you get this new training. You go, oh, this is really cool. But what happens is it's like you're throwing on a new coat over your old coat. And after a while, you start sweating and you go, this is really ridiculous. And you pop off the new coat that you learned so that you're back to your old coat, your comfort zone. And so I really, wanted to look at how can we shift this? And so I affectionately subtitle my book. It's not the official subtitle, but I kind of jokingly call it the second to last self-help book you'll ever need. Because the idea is that we've all got a lot of self-help books out there. We may have, often we call it shelf help because we got shelves of them, but we still keep needing more and needing more. Well, the premise of my book is that first, before you take on anything new, clear the space. Get the old coat off of you. Get rid of your old belief system that is holding you in place so that when you take on this new training, new belief system, whatever it may be, it now can stick. And so that's the whole premise and how it evolved from the pharma industry.
Okay. So The Art of Forgetting by Michael Neeley.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are thinking you have a book, and maybe, people aren't asking you about what you've done or what to share, something that you've cooked or a bit of advice, but maybe there's something inside of you that you've been yearning to tell somebody about or to share. And maybe even just in the therapeutic sitting down and writing of it, it can uncover where the book goes. So I always want to recommend that for anyone out there that feels like writing is therapeutic for you and that writing, you might want to write a book, but you're stopped with who are you going to sell it to, or what's it going to be titled, or what's it going to be about. Maybe don't let those details get in the way and just start writing and see what is uncovered, what comes to the surface, what gets inspired in you. Now, when it comes to, I know that you're doing an event this year, Michael, your Authority Blueprint. Is that the first time you're putting this on?
It is the first Authority Blueprint live event, yes.
Tell us about that.
I'm really excited about this event, JJ, and nervous. And I think those two kind of go hand in hand sometimes when you're taking on this new thing like you did recently with, releasing What Weighs You Down, such an awesome event, by the way. And your Authority Blueprint Live is about how to take what I consider the 4 foundational pillars of authority, which are, in my mind, podcasting, virtual summits, speaking from stage, and authoring your own book. And when you intertwine those, and you're a master of repurposing as well, so you know what it is to be able to use one in another way so that you're not redoing work from scratch all the time. Those 4 play so well together, and they start to cross over in a way that kind of exponentially makes your authority grow, where you become the go-to expert. You become, that expression, so-and-so wrote the book on. It's kind of like that. You become so well-known and equated with your topic that, everybody knows you. Clients flock to you, and you get invited to be on other people's stages, other people's podcasts, and, the world really opens up to you. So this event is about creating the blueprint to be able to do that in a way that's going to really escalate your authority.
So it's really meant for solopreneurs, yes, or for anybody?
It's really meant for a solopreneur and let me define solopreneur, because I know a lot of people go, well, I've got a business. I'm not a solopreneur. Solopreneur doesn't mean that you're a one-man show or one-woman show. All solopreneur means is that you are the brand. You may have a large team, you could have 20 people on your team, but if your name is the brand, your face is the brand, then you're really still, in my mind, a solopreneur. You are the business. And so it would be definitely geared towards those, but it's also going to be really an event that if someone wants to or aspires to that, but their message is locked inside them. I would say that if they know, if you know that you've got a message that you want to get out to the world, then it would be the event for you, because you'll be able to tap into that. You'll be around other people who are tapping into that. And these four elements that I talk about are ways for you to get that message out in a massive way.
And for those of you that aren't business owners or entrepreneurs and aren't used to the word masterminding, a mastermind is where multiple people come together and start brainstorming, and they brainstorm about each other's stuff as well as their own stuff. And in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about the idea of mastermind, and what happens is there's like this extra entity that happens in a mastermind where there's a collective energy and even beyond that helps to sort of bring forth new ideas and energies to your project or to whatever it is that you're trying to work on. And mastermind is a term I love because it's like a think tank. And for those of you that have a book in you or have a business in you, and I know some of you who listen to my shows are sitting waiting in the wings, you have a book in you and you know it, but you're afraid, and that's okay. But this might be a great opportunity for you just to workshop it a little bit. And I'm not trying to make entrepreneurs out of people who aren't interested in being entrepreneurs. Keep that in mind. I'm not trying to sell you on working for yourself. What I want to give people permission to do is to leverage the creativity inside of you to allow yourself to dream big enough and allow yourself to think outside of the box and about creating something that is yours, even when you work for somebody else. Because when you work for somebody else, it's not using all your creative energy. And there's still a part of you that I think needs to be expressed, that might want to be expressed. And so being around a bunch of people who are doing this creates something that I can't explain. You just have to sort of be there and experience certain that heightened creative flow that then taps into places, and you just get ideas and downloads, and you see examples, and you just think in a new way. So Michael's event, I believe the price tag is pretty darn good. And I also know I have a coupon to give all of you for those of you that are interested. So it makes it even better to take the time to mastermind in this way. You know, when I want to work on my business, and I don't know about you, Michael, but when I want to really work on my business, I have to take, not work in my business, but work on my business. I have to take time away from doing things. And I take a whiteboard and I take multiple hours, and it might be with different people. And it's at least with one person. And I strategize and I write and I plan. But it's not about actually executing any of the things. It's just about strategizing and thinking and creating and allowing yourself to be in that space. Because I know one thing for sure about a lot of you that work for somebody else. Your creativity does not get tapped into as much as it can. And I believe that our creative expression is directly linked to our emotional expression, and therefore our feelings about the future, our feelings about our lives, about our confidence. And so I think that making sure that you find a way to put yourself into a situation where, oh my God, like give yourself the space to have the aha. Give yourself that's what we did at the event, at my event, at Releasing What Weighs You Down. That's what we're doing at the next one. And at every event that I do, in a different way, of course, it's to give you space to heal. And Michael's event is giving you space to be creative and to dream a little bigger and to step outside of the comfort zone of the box of your life and of your business. And if you do have a book inside of you that you've been wanting to write and you're not sure what it is, this event could give you just that contemplative creative space with other experts who would probably help you. You'd get ideas out the yin yang, you'd get a direction, and you'd be so excited, and it would probably all come together. So that's my pitch for those of you that might be considering, because I know so many people that say for years, I want to write a book, I want to write a book, I want to write a book, but you don't do anything about it. And there are book writing programs out there. Trust me. In fact, one of my friends, like, I don't know if you know this about people in the podcasting industry. I started out with another fellow podcaster in a mastermind whose podcast was literally about finishing your book. And we joked by the end of it that we wanted him to finish his podcast because his podcast was about get your book done. And we want him to get his show done because he like dragged his feet about getting his podcast up and running. Then he did so well and he got overwhelmed, and I don't think he's recording or doing anything anymore. So we want to create this space for you to actually follow through with what you want to do. So you don't have any regrets about not giving yourself, not respecting your creativity and giving yourself the time and space to say, well, if I was going to write a book, what would it be about? And what would my expertise be about? Because we all have, that's the whole point of today's show. We all have hidden expertise that don't necessarily come with a degree. You've heard, my resume, you've heard Michael's resume, and we continue allowing ourselves to evolve in the ways in which both our life purpose, our creativity, and other people, all that magic of what comes in between all of that, and we just keep allowing it to keep unfolding. And great things happen when you just step out of the I should know how, I should know why, it looks like this, and say, well, what if it doesn't? And what's next? I mean, Michael started doing the work with podcasters because podcasters asked him for help, right? And same thing with Spirit, Purpose, and Energy for me. I started doing different things with that group because it was asked of me. And that's why it works, is because there's that mastermind principle of collective creative energy coming together to form a new entity, if you will. And that's where the magic happens. So that's for those of you that are thinking about writing a book. Now, obviously, if you are an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, then this should be a no-brainer. Michael, tell us a little bit about the structure of the event and the price and my discount.
Yeah, absolutely. And JJ, I also want to just mention real quickly, though, I love that you brought up the creativity piece, and you mentioned it several times. That's actually what led me away from the pharma industry. I was making great money in the pharma world. And literally when I started, I thought, oh, this could be a thing that I stick with to retirement. But I was creatively starving. There was no use of my creativity, and that's why I started with the book idea and finally had to move away from there. So I love that you mentioned that. Now, here's the thing with the event, and it may be that you got a book in you, but I know that there's also people out there, and I've met many people who say, I just don't like writing. I don't like sitting down and writing. I love talking, though. Well, we're also going to be dealing with podcasting. So maybe podcasting, and you want to speak your message out to the world. So we're going to talk about that at the event as well. And here's the cool thing for, your fans, JJ, and I love your fans, by the way. It was so cool meeting them at Releasing What Weighs You Down. And hopefully I'll get to meet some more of them, in January of 2019. The event pricing right now is still on super early bird pricing, which is $197 for a basic, I'm doing it kind of like the airline. So it's $197 for an economy seat. You can upgrade to business class for only $297, and that includes your lunches and some other goodies. Or you can upgrade to first class for only $397, and that includes lunches, dinners, a bottle of wine, and some other nice goodies as well. And here's the thing, for anybody who are fans of JJ's shows, you just use the code JJ, and you will get an extra $100 off of those three prices that I just mentioned. So you simply go to michaelneeley.com/JJ, and you'll see the pricing sheet and the information, more details about the event. And then when you go to checkout, whichever ticket level you choose, you go to checkout, use the code JJ down at the checkout bottom and click the button next to it, and it'll take $100 off. And JJ, can I offer one more cool thing to your peeps?
Of course.
Okay. If you want to come to the event for free, I would love to have you there. So if money is an issue, you will also find on that page a spot down at the bottom where you can apply for a scholarship to get a free ticket. Now, the way it will work is it would normally be a $197 seat deposit. And when you click on that, you can still apply the $100 off. So it would be a $97 seat deposit, which you will get back when you show up at the door. Now, you've got to show up to get it back, but you will end up getting a free seat at the event. So that is an option as well for anybody who's just dying to be there and, maybe money's tight right now. So that's all for fans of JJ's.
Thank you, Michael. And the event is 3 days or 4 days?
It is 3.5, let's call it. It is June 25th, 26th, and 27th. That's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's happening at the Monterey Tides Hotel, oceanfront, by the way. Gorgeous hotel. One whole wall of the conference room looks right out at the ocean. It's gorgeous. And the reason I say 3.5 days is because on Sunday night, for people who are coming in from out of town, when you arrive early, we will have a cocktail reception, meet and greet with past hors d'oeuvres. And so if you want to show up for that early on Sunday night, you'd be welcome to join us for that as well.
And for the free tickets, they're not obviously getting lunches and dinners, correct?
Correct. And I do highly recommend that they upgrade to the lunch and dinner, because here's the thing, and you talked about it when you said it's important to network and meet with other people and kind of think tank. Well, these lunches that you'll be sitting in on, it saves you the trouble of having to go out and find a restaurant and get back on time. We'll be providing wonderful gourmet lunches for you, and you'll be sitting at a table with other people, so you'll get a chance to meet and network with more people, and we'll have other trainers come in to teach more specific stuff that will be valuable to you during those lunches as well. So I highly recommend you upgrade to either business or first class.
And I will be there. So
Yes.
make sure that if you want to come mastermind with me, I'm a great problem solver, especially in the world of business and ideas. And if money's an issue, again, please take advantage of the scholarship where you're only going to put down $97 seat deposit that you'll get back, and use the code JJ to save $100 off. But I would recommend doing the first class. Do the $397, take $100 off. It's $297, and you're getting all your meals plus a bottle of wine. So, I mean, you can't really beat that for 3 days worth of masterminding and networking and meeting people. And even if you don't have a book right now, but you want to have one, and you're thinking about a podcast, you can start being a guest. There are people there that may have shows that maybe you can be a guest on someone's show. Get your feet wet. Try it out. If you have a message, and everyone has a message, and that's hopefully what I'm trying to get across to everybody today, is that you all have a message. I don't care who you are, who you work for, and what you do. There's a message inside of you that you're here to share, whether it be to 10 people or 10,000 people or 10 million people. There's a gift inside of you, and I just want to make sure that anyone who's feeling that yearning of, I know it's there, I don't know exactly what it is or what to do with it yet, but I know it's there, I want to give you a reason to let it out and to give it space so that you can see it, experience it, and use it, just so that you have that peace of mind knowing that this is what I've created, and this is all of what I've been doing, and why I'm here, and what I'm supposed to help others do, even if it's just a small portion. Maybe it doesn't bring you any money, but it gives you that satisfaction of knowing your life, everything you've experienced is valuable, and someone else can benefit from it. So one more time, Michael, where can people tell us the website, the code, and the dates and the location?
Absolutely. So it's going to be June 25th, 26th, and 27th of 2018 at the Monterey Tides Hotel in Monterey, California, in the beautiful Monterey Bay. And you can go to michaelneeley.com/JJ to get more details about the event and find out about which ticket you want to choose. And when you do click on the ticket that you're going to get, it will take you to the checkout page, and be sure at the bottom of the checkout page where it says coupon code, enter in JJ and hit the check mark button to apply it, and that will give them $100 off of the event. And JJ, can I surprise you with something?
Of course.
So this is really cool. So I was just talking to a friend of mine who's in construction. We're going to build 3 or 4 little recording sound booths to be in the room. And so podcasters who are present there, like JJ and some of the others who we'll have in-house, if you're an ideal guest for them, during the breaks, they're going to be recording interviews right there. So you get to see how it's done. You get to see some professional podcasters in action. So that's also going to be part of it. And maybe you'll be selected to be a guest on someone's show. So that's just an extra little thing we just added to the event. So it ought to be awesome.
Very exciting. Michael, thank you so much for sharing your journey with others. I hope that what we've talked about today inspires people to, if nothing else, just think about what the message inside of them is, who they'd share it to, what they'd say, what legacy they'd want to leave behind. And sometimes a book and a platform can help you do that. And it's not that it's that imperative. I mean, everyone's life is a completely valuable and worthy regardless of what you do. But if you've got that little itch of, I want to share more with the world, and I want to help others, and I want to know what my story can do for the world, please definitely consider coming to Michael's event. Consider writing a book. Consider being on a podcast and having your own podcast. We definitely want to support people living their purpose and dream and uncovering your hidden expertise. Michael, thank you so much for being here.
It's an absolute pleasure, JJ. Keep up the great work. I love what you do, and I look forward to hanging out with you more in 2018 and 2019.